So, today in part one of how to get your multifamily loan approved, I'm going to share with you the hidden multifamily loan approval killers that you absolutely have to watch out for. There are 8 of them, and these can come out of nowhere, and voila, your loan is going to get denied. Part two will be on the 7 prequalifications that all commercial loans have. And what I want to do, though, is just start out by telling you a story. About 4 months ago, my company, Apartment Loan Store, got a call from an investor who was desperate. Well, that's kind of an understatement. He was clearly in shock. The loan officer he was working with at his credit union assured him early on that he was overqualified for the loan, and this loan officer was his buddy. And what the guy was doing was purchasing a 16-unit apartment building. Okay, come on now. He had spent 9 months searching for the right property to buy in this overpriced seller's market, and even got the seller to do some repairs. And 3 weeks before the closing date, after the lender had been working on the loan for almost a month, his loan is axed. So what actually happened here? Out of nowhere, loan approval killer number 8 comes out of the woodwork and annihilates his loan. What is loan approval killer number 8? It's an ugly background check report. Who would have guessed? Stick around as I will be going through this hidden loan approval killer along with 7 others, and you can find out exactly what happened here. Hello, I'm Terry Painter, the author of this best-selling book, The Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice. At my company, Apartment Loan Store, I am proud that we have a 97% success rate of closing our loans as proposed. This is not an easy thing to pull off. We can brag about this because my loan officers are so exceptionally well trained. What they do is they qualify the borrower and the property thoroughly at the beginning based on the 7 prequalifications that all commercial loans have, which are outlined in my book. My loan officers are also on point to look out for these 8 hidden loan approval killers that I will be going over now in the order of their occurrences. Okay, coming in at loan killer number 1, the actual expenses are higher. This is often caused by the borrower and the lender being duped by the seller and the listing agent unintentionally. It's not that the seller and the listing agent want to actually dupe you, but it kind of happens because the seller simply turns in his financials showing his expenses. The listing agent now wants to show the net income in its most favorable light and doesn't research actual expenses the borrower will have that might be different or higher than the seller. This quite often produces a smaller loan. The number one culprit here is property taxes being higher in the future than what is showing on the seller's P&L statement. Okay, the lender is going to look up the current annual taxes, but they're also going to look up the actual millage rate from the city or county and apply this, which is often higher than what the seller is paying currently. And beware, if you live in California, property taxes are reassessed for the buyer at the sales price, which always raises them. Ouch. Also, watch out for the lender requiring more insurance, raising this expense than what the seller has for insurance. Another expense that is often higher or even missed altogether is management. Sometimes this is just left out of the seller's P&L because they self-manage. But all appraisers and lenders always include this expense, even if the buyer is planning on self-managing. Your lender will ultimately use the percentage that your management contract is going to be showing. And don't forget that all lenders and appraisers include capital improvements. They subtract this amount as an expense, even though these often do not show up on the P&L statement that the seller is going to give you. So don't forget about those. Okay, coming in at loan killer number 2 is a low appraisal. This is like the worst. Banks even seem to have a special talent for actually encouraging this. Why? Because it lowers their risk to do a smaller loan, especially when we are in an environment like we are in like right now, like where interest rates are going up and there's talk of a recession coming. During recessions, commercial property values can drop, even though in the last recession, multifamily values held pretty good. But banks prefer, even during the best of economic times, knowing a recession might be around the corner, a more conservative valuation, and appraisers know this. This puts pressure on appraisers to choose lower value sales and cap rate comparables in their reports, which support a lower value. In my book, the section on the truth about commercial appraisals, I go into detail as to why commercial appraisals are not an exact science. So what can you do to watch out for this one? Well, you don't want to tell your lender you just think the property is worth this because you feel this is a good value for the property, and watch them not in agreement. What you want to do is show them the facts. Show the lender at the beginning some rent and sales comparables that support the value that you need. Then ask their opinion on the value. Be sure to go a step further, though, and ask the loan officer to ask whoever is going to approve the loan to give their opinion on the value as well. This will set an expectation on value at the beginning. Okay, so here is loan killer number 3. Some tenants are late pays or no pays. Most lenders will do a rent collection report, which looks at so many months of rent rolls and compares them with so many months of profit and loss statements, and even operating bank accounts if there's discrepancies. If the rent is being collected and, some renters are paying late or not at all, this amount will be taken off by the lender off of the gross rental income. And of course, this takes money off the bottom line, which can produce a smaller loan. Okay, coming in at loan killer number 4, the borrower doesn't have the cash. Borrowers don't try to dupe anybody with this. Usually they think they have the cash. We are talking about the down payment, closing costs, post-closing liquidity, which is the cash you're supposed to have left over after the loan closes, your net worth, or verifiable income on tax returns. If any of these come up short, it can annihilate your loan. So be sure to watch out for also these unexpected things like lost carry forwards that you might be showing in your tax returns. If you have them, you will have to convince the lender that they are not reoccurring, or that they'll take that amount off of your income. Okay, here is loan killer number 5. The borrower has a business or investment property or properties that negatively cash flow. Okay, this means that you're showing a loss on these properties. All lenders check for this one, and if the loss amounts to a lower debt-to-income ratio or a lower, what we call a gross ratio for commercial loans, your financial solvency will be in question, and this could kill your loan. Okay, loan killer number 6. There is a prohibitive prepayment penalty. Now, all sellers know, or they think they know what their prepayment penalty is when they put the property up for sale, but I can't tell you, at least 2 to 4 times a year, our firm gets a loan axed because of this occurring, where the seller thought they had a very low or no prepayment penalty, and then sometimes this doesn't happen until a payoff is ordered, by the title company or the lender, the current lender. So be sure to check current mortgage notes to make sure that the prepayment penalty is affordable. If this is a purchase, have your lender or real estate broker ask for a copy of the seller's mortgage note. I know that sounds like being really gutsy, but no, don't worry about that. Don't worry about being rude. You've got to do it. I have had sellers refuse to close because they found out at the 11th hour, I'm talking about on the day of closing, that the prepayment penalty was was just too high. They couldn't afford it. Okay, coming in at loan killer number 7, there are 1 or more illegal units. Most lenders will pull up the certificate of occupancy for the property to determine how many units the property has that are legal. Now, this is something that some sellers try to get away with, but in my experience, most sellers also don't even think about it. They might have just taken, one case in Santa Monica, the seller just took one very large 3-bedroom apartment and made it into 2 apartments, but he didn't go through the city to do this. So what will happen is that if the gross rental income shows the illegal units as well, and the lender finds out that 1 or 2 units is illegal, they'll just take that amount off of the gross rental income, which will result most likely in a smaller loan. Okay, and finally, what we've all been waiting for, loan approval killer number 8. There is an ugly background check report. So here's exactly what happened to the guy that I told you about at the beginning that got his loan axed at his credit union. All lenders will pull a background check, so don't even think that this is not going to happen. In this case, they pulled it late. It showed that 16 years before the borrower had a DUI. Now, in the loan application, he checked that little box that said he had never had any convictions. He honestly didn't think he honestly didn't think a DUI fit into the category of a conviction. And although he had not forgotten about it, he thought that it was so far behind him, it certainly wouldn't show up or maybe even matter. The lender felt, though, that the borrower had lied to them on the loan application and wondered perhaps what else he might be lying about and axed his loan. So, fortunately, the buyer was able to get a 30-day extension from the seller, and he reapplied with us. We, of course, made sure that he checked all those little boxes correctly, including convictions, and we closed on his loan 44 days later. So be sure when you fill out the loan application that you see all those little boxes, that you check them all correctly, especially the ones for bankruptcy, foreclosure, or mortgage lates. Even if these don't show up on your credit report anymore, you could be sure they will show up on a background check before. And I could tell you about one time where one of our borrowers had a short sale, and they didn't think that this had anything to do with having a foreclosure or late pays because they settled, amicably with the lender. But on the background check, it showed that they had late pays and that they were in pre-foreclosure. And so that was 2 strikes against them. So, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up button. No more buttons, that's enough. And for current apartment building mortgage rates and more info on my loan programs, you will find a link to Apartment Loan Store below, as well as a link to my book, The Encyclopedia of Commercial Real Estate Advice, where you can download a free sample. And be sure to watch out for part 2 on this series, How to Get Your Multifamily Loan Approved, which will be coming out in about 3 weeks, where I will be going over the 7 pre-approvals that all commercial loans have. And thanks for watching. See you on the next episode, and be well.